Good morning and welcome to another episode number 6 of Morning Buzz with the Energy Guy. Hi, I'm your energy guy, Tom Moore, coming to you from the Farmers Electric Studio here in the high plains of eastern New Mexico at our headquarters in Clovis. So I've taken some calls over the last couple of weeks about energy efficiency upgrades, and I try to share with our member consumer of things that will pay for themselves over time reasonably. And if you've ever seen Energy Star, have you seen that on appliances? It says Energy Star. The Department of Energy puts those on appliances. They have strict guidelines for Energy Star appliances, but in the end, in a nutshell, if it has the Energy Star label, you are going to pay a premium. But here's the caveat. It will pay for itself in savings, that difference between a non-Energy Star and an Energy Star appliance, in a quote reasonable amount of time. Okay. Somebody may call in and say, hey, I want new windows. I've been approached by ABC Window Company or Acme Window Company, and they will finance this for me, and my windows are old. And I say, well, how old are they? And they say, well, our house was built in 2005. It's not that long ago. Pretty good windows in 2005. But, I hear the dust blows in and they don't open as well as they used to or whatever. Folks, save your money. I mean, if you've got 20-year-old windows, it's going to cost you a small fortune to replace your windows on an average home. I'm guessing in the $35,000 realm. And then if you finance that at some outrageous interest, 12%, as high as 15%, you're going to be paying on that for a long time. And, I think your money can just be better spent elsewhere. Heck, if you've got that kind of money, well, if you're financing it, you probably don't have it readily available. But if you have that money and you're just thinking about putting it into your house, you're not going to get it back in the value of your home. It just doesn't pan out. I would suggest the stock market. Look at the history of the stock market. It pays, over the last 5 years, higher than 10% return. So, if you're considering a return of your investment or return on your investment, maybe look at the stock market and then just take some other money maybe and make some sensible changes at your home. And I've got to thinking about this over the last couple of weeks, and I wanted to re-educate myself on the federal tax credits. And that's what this show's about. It's going to be about federal tax credits and what's available for homeowners on their primary residence in the form of residential upgrades in efficiency. And these will be against your personal income tax at the end of the year. We all do it. We all pay income tax, whether we like it or not. But what do you say you invest some of the money in your home and you get it back, or you get a portion of it back? Wouldn't that be nice? Well, it's possible. So the maximum tax credit annually, and to keep in mind, tax credits are not deductions. A deduction goes against your taxable income. What's your total taxable income? Or your tax liability, right? Well, let me back up. A deduction goes against your taxable income. A credit goes against your tax liability. In other words, what you owe. So let's just use this example. Tax credits for residential energy efficiency combined. So there's several things that you can find that you would qualify for in a year's time in the same calendar year. But the most you can get, the maximum back in tax credit, is $3,200, $3,200. And I'm going to tell you where to find these. We can look through these and see what you might qualify for, and it may encourage you guys to do something. But, and again, these are sensible upgrades that make sense. How about upgrades that make money? So where you find these is Energy, and I'll put this on our Facebook page, a link. Morning Buzz with the Energy Guy. EnergyStar.gov. EnergyStar.gov. Once you're there, scroll down just a half a page or maybe a little more than that. And you'll find a button on the right side that says See Eligibility for tax credits for residential energy efficiency. Click on that button, and it'll take you to everything that is eligible for a tax credit. I've got several scenarios here, and I've done some math. We'll work through the math a little bit. And today we're going to talk about this day in history, July 26th. That's coming up a little later in the show. And I've got a question, Ask the Energy Guys, Ask the Energy Guy that I got in Messenger on Facebook. So we had one last week, got another one. So I'm going to share it. I thought it was a good one. I don't share them all. And this one I had to do a little research for, but we'll get to that in just a little bit. So we're about 10 minutes into the show. So I need to move along. So if you get $32 annually maximum, say your tax liability is $8,000. So you paid in, say you paid in $8,500, $8,500 through your employer's withholding. And your tax liability at the end of the year, you determine is $800. So you're looking at a $500 rebate, right? However, you did a number of energy efficiency things throughout the calendar year that qualify for a total of $3,200. So you got a $500 tax return refund, and you've got $3,200 tax credit. Do that math, 3,200 plus 500. That's $3,700 that comes back to you. Don't you prefer that? Instead of letting Uncle Sam keep it? In a lot of cases, waste it? I would. I'd rather have it back. Now, not everything's going to, that's a maximum total of $3,200. Let's look at some examples of different things you can do. Say, for instance, you've got a heat pump condensing unit that maybe it was an older refrigerated AC, the outdoor condensing unit, and you thought, you know what? I've heard a lot about these air source heat pumps. I'm gonna check into one of those. And of course, they all have qualifications on energy efficiency. We don't have time to get into all the qualifications, so we'll just take it on the surface, okay? We'll get an overall view of these things without digging too deep, because we frankly just don't have enough time. Heat pumps, so they operate. They've got a reversing switch in them on the refrigerant, where an AC doesn't. An AC condensing unit is only going to air condition during the summertime. It will not run during the wintertime. Well, it will if you turn it on, but typically you don't have them running in the wintertime, right? A heat pump's just the opposite. It's got a reversing switch, so it reverses the flow of the refrigerant causing a air conditioner to heat during the wintertime. Okay. To give you an idea of what that means, you've seen those window refrigeration air conditioners, and they sit in the window. They're blowing cold air inside the house, but if you walk outside and walk past the back side of that window AC, what do you feel coming out? Heat, right? You feel heat coming out, being exhausted. But again, on the inside, you're feeling cool. Think of that reversing switch as that unit turning it around in the window for the wintertime, and it's blowing cold air out into the outdoor, and it's heating the inside of your home. I'm not suggesting you do that. I guess you could do that if you were desperate. It would probably work. But that's what a reversing switch on a heat pump outdoor condensing unit does. So they cool and heat. They're not cheap. I mean, so if you're going to replace the air handler inside your house, the furnace, in this case, we're talking electric. So your backup heat would be electric strip heat in 5,000 watt blocks or 5 kW blocks. Some of them is 10 kW. Some of them have 15 kW, depending on how big the unit is. Some of them have 20 kW. I haven't seen many past 20 kW. But the rebate is 30% of the project cost total, but it's got a maximum of $2,000. Okay, that's on that example, heat pump. So if that costs you turnkey $10,000, let's just say that's what the cost is. And I'm not saying that's what you should expect to pay any less or any more. That's just what the number I took out of the sky. You multiply that times 30% and you get $3,000. Well, your maximum is $2,000 tax credit. So how much are you going to get back? $2,000. That's a maximum. Let's move on. Central AC. There's a 30% tax credit on that, up to a maximum of $600. Okay, Central AC is going to be that unit that sits outside, but doesn't have the reversing switch in it, right? So it's only going to cool. This is a popular one because sometimes it goes hand in hand with adding a heat pump or electric heat or something like that. And that's an electric panel upgrade, your electric service. A lot of our consumer members have 100 amp service, some of the older homes, and say they need to upgrade to 200 amp service. Well, there's a tax credit, and it's 30% of total job up to a maximum of $600. So, for instance, if you paid $2,500 an electrician to upgrade your panel, 30% of that's $750. But that pushes the maximum to $600, so you get $600 back. But every penny counts, right? It goes back into your pocket at the end of the year. The sooner you get your taxes filed, the sooner you get your check from the IRS. Exterior doors is another example. 30% of total. And when I say total, I'm talking about purchasing the door and the installation cost, the labor. So the maximum is $500 per home or $250 per door. So if you only do one door, the maximum is $200. So if you do two doors, the maximum is $500, but that's the maximum overall. Here's one that's interesting. This is one I've done. I did it 7-8 years ago at my house, and I did it because, man, the incentives were almost too good. Geothermal ground loop heat pump. Okay? Geothermal heating and air conditioning heat pump. Some call them ground source heat pumps. There is a lot involved. It is very invasive. I mean, they drill into your yard in a number of places. Say if it's a 5-ton unit, they're going to drill at least 5 holes, maybe 6. They run 250 feet of PVC, earth PVC, and it loops. It goes down and then it comes back up and goes to a header and runs through all the other pipes again. The idea is to use the ground as your heat exchange, because the ground is a fixed temperature almost year round. It's like 68 degrees at 6 foot. So you can dispense a lot of heat from your home into the ground and collect cool as it runs through this closed loop system and pulls cool into the water and antifreeze mix that's within the pipes. And then it comes across, goes through a short condensing cycle and cools your home. They are expensive. So when I did it, the state was offering a 33%, no, I think it was a 30% tax credit total on total job. The federal government, IRS, was offering a 30% total job. So it's 60% of my investment back. Plus, I'm a member of Farmers Electric, and we were offering a $1,000 per ton installed geothermal. So $1,000 per ton. So I had a 4-ton unit, so I got $4,000. And that's our maximum. We do offer that rebate. So if you choose to go this way, give me a call. We can talk about it. It is difficult to find contractors that do this right now, but I don't know that there's any in Clovis that are doing it. I do know that they will maintenance your system here in Clovis, several of our heating and air conditioning specialists, but I don't think any of them are doing the drilling or any of that. Several of them can install the system, but they don't necessarily do the ground loop itself. They will do the equipment, okay? But an example of this would be, and again, the IRS tax credit, the state credit went away. The IRS federal credit is 30% of project total. So in this example, it costs turnkey for everything, for the loop and the equipment and installation, $45,000. Times 30% is $13,500. So that's what you're looking at, right? As a tax credit. That's money back to you, money from Uncle Sam that they've withheld over the year back to you. Now, sometimes you don't withhold that much, right? I mean, it's all based on income, like combined income if you're married. So $13,500 is your total, and you can carry that over from year to year until it's exhausted. And again, keep in mind the maximum tax credit per household is $3,200. So in that first year, you have a $13,500 tax credit. You get $3,200 back from Uncle Sam. It leaves you a balance of $10,300. But you'll have that carried over to the next year, and you get another $3,200 back, and to the next year, and so on and so forth till it's gone. But immediately, or within the first month of installation, Farmers Electric will pay $1,000 per ton with a $4,000 maximum. We'll send you a check for, if it's 3 tons, we'll send you $3,000. If it's 4 tons, we'll send you $4,000. If it's 5 tons, we'll send you $4,000. Again, because that's the maximum. Let's see. Insulation is a good one. I need to get this in here for sure. Insulation is huge. I mean, it makes all the difference, particularly attic insulation. So right now, the IRS is offering 30% of total project with a maximum of $1,200. Okay. So let's use it for instance. We'll do some more math. $8,000 to put in to insulate your attic. Okay. Or add, and say that takes you to an R45, which is a great amount. It's a good amount of insulation. You really don't need to add any more. So 8,000 times 30% equals 2,400. And again, the maximum is 1,200. So you'd be getting $1,200 back from your 8,000. So that's a net. Your net pay on that is $6,800. And Farmers Electric offers a $500 cash back rebate when you do that. So that's reduced even another $500. You need to take a look at these. Go to EnergyStar.gov. Once there, you scroll down, find the heading Tax Credits for Residential Energy Efficiency. There is a See Eligibility button. Click on that, and it'll give you a long list. I only covered, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 things, but there's a list of about 20. So take a look at those. This day in history, July 26, 1908. the FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation, was founded. Now, I didn't know that. I thought it came sometime later. I don't know why. I was thinking it was in the 40s or 50s, but I think that's when they got busy. And particularly when the United States was in fear of communism spreading, and a lot of people, particularly entertainers, were blacklisted. And maybe that's why I was thinking it was, in the 50s and into the 60s. But no, it was 1908. So the FBI has been around a long time. 1941, July 26th. This, of course, was before the United States entry into World War II. The United States freezes Japanese assets. So maybe that made him mad. I think it was a culmination of things that angered Japan, that made him do something crazy, like attacking the United States at Pearl Harbor on December 7th of that same year. But in July 26th, the United States freezes Japanese assets. In 1945, let's fast forward to the end of the war, Winston Churchill resigns on July 26th. And it wasn't out of, shame or anything. He's considered one of the greatest prime ministers of all time and one of the greatest allies to the United States. It was because in the 11th hour of World War II, his party was defeated by the Labor Party. So he was going to be replaced. So he had no choice other than resign. And then in September, the Japanese surrendered to the United States, officially ending the war. So, one more for you. This is interesting. In 1948, and you'd have thought it would have happened before this, but in 1948, so after World War II, President Truman ended segregation in the military. And it was a long time coming, wasn't it? But, things only get better. So congratulations to President Truman for doing the right thing there. That's your day in history, July 26th. Hope you enjoyed that. So we got, I'm gonna go ahead and extend the show just a few minutes because I'm gonna talk about this question I got that asked the energy guy, and it's relating to water heater blankets. Have you ever heard of those water heater blankets? It's just like a blanket that we may use when we're cold or, want to warm up a little bit. We snuggle up to a blanket, right, and wrap it around us, and we'll feel nice and cozy. And that's kind of what your water heater does if you put an electric water or a water heater blanket on a water heater. And have you ever said hot water heater? Isn't that some redundancies there? Does that even make sense? Do you heat hot water? No, it's a water heater that produces hot water. So it's not a hot water heater. It's a water heater. And that's free of charge. Ladies and gentlemen, at no cost to you. Hey, I'm guilty of it too, so don't worry about it. So here's the question. Dear Energy Guy, what do you know about water heater blankets? Should I install one? The short answer is yes. I got a long answer. I wasn't sure about this one. I mean, I knew about water heater blankets. I've never installed one personally. So I looked some stuff up, and turns out it's a great question. Here's my research. Most older water heaters have an inch of fiberglass tank insulation. The newer ones that we're seeing produced in, say, the last 10 years have an inch of foam insulation, which has proven to be better. And you can reduce your energy consumption by installing an additional blanket of fiberglass insulation. This is one of the most common and effective energy conservation measures available. As a matter of fact, this is the one where you get a return on your investment, but you get a return on your investment, according to this article that I found, in about 6 years. So that's pretty good. And then after that, any savings is just gravy, right? So water heaters come in kits that contain a blanket, straps, and tape. The straps hold the insulation to the water heater, and the tape seals the seams in the insulation. So before you do anything, turn off your water heater, okay, before installing the blanket. Read all the instructions that come with a blanket. Identify the areas where the blanket will be taped to the water heater. Okay, and you need to wipe these down with I'd say like a 50% alcohol, 50% water mixture, and then let it dry, and that will enable the tape to stick best. Cut the blanket to size with scissors. Leave some extra until you know for sure how much you're going to need. There was once, it might have been Thomas Jefferson. He says, measure twice, cut once. How many out there have measured once and cut and then thought, well, I'm way short or I'm way long? It's okay if you're long because you can cut again, but if you go back and you're short and you measure it and you think, darn it, man, I measured it. I thought I measured it wrong. So that's why you measure twice, cut once. That's another free life hack. Let's see. Yeah. So you need to, this is either electric or gas. You need to identify the pressure relief valve on either the top or the side. And you don't want to cover that. So you need to cut a hole for that or a little flap for it, because that is an important safety device. And you've got this in it. The pressure relief valve usually has a PVC running off of it that goes down to about a foot above the ground, above the floor. Okay. If you ever see that leaking, that means that valve is failing, and you do not want that valve to fail. And it can be replaced without replacing the tank. For electric water heaters, you can insulate the top of the tank as well as the sides. But as a note, where the two rectangle covers provide access to the thermostat and elements, you want to cut a flap for both of those in the insulation to provide access, if you need it, to those panels. Okay, if you need to turn the thermostat up or down or change an element. For gas water heaters, do not insulate the top. And you want to make a note that the gas valve and burner access door near the bottom of the tank, you want to cut a blanket so that it's at least 2 inches away from those. Okay? I mean, anything you put on there is better than nothing, but don't cover these essential parts of the working parts of the water heater. You know, you don't want to cover that because they work by combustion, and in that if you smother the pilot, then it's not going to work. So you got to keep, and you could really cause some major issues. So just stay away from that altogether. You want to install the blanket so that it's snug and fasten it well so it will stay in place. This is long-lasting conservation measure will save energy day and night for the life of your water heater. And the life of your water heater, if it's well maintained, could be as if you're changing your elements and flushing your tank and just taking good care of it, it could be 20 years. So take care of those. They're an investment. You want to take care of your investment. Ladies and gentlemen, time is up. I appreciate you tuning in to episode 6 of Morning Buzz with the Energy Guy. Talk to you next week.